We did see the green shoots of economic recovery from the third quarter of financial year 21. And while the forecast for FY22 was encouraging, but then the second wave arrived, throwing all the calculations out of gear. But we are very happy to state that even in these difficult times, Pioneer Embroideries has grown at a very healthy rate. And it is actually after a very long interval that we are interacting with you on this platform. So I'll just give you a brief idea about Pioneer and its business. For those of you who don't have much of a background. So Pioneer Embroideries Limited was established in 1991 by Mr. Rajkumar Sekhani, who is the chairman of the company. And over the years, it has risen to become one of India's notable manufacturer and exporter of value-added polyester filament yarn, SPFY as we call it internally, and embroidered fabrics and laces. We have 4 factories, a state-of-art manufacturing facility for SPFY at Himachal Pradesh, and 3 factories for manufacturing embroidered fabrics and laces at Gujarat, in Dadra, Nagar Haveli, and in Tamil Nadu. We export our products to about 26 countries across North America, basically covering North America, Latin America, Europe, Middle East, and some parts of Africa. We are perhaps the only company to have an established brand in SPFY segment. We call it Silcolite. And a lot of you would be familiar with our brand for the embroidered fabrics. It's called Hakoba, which is a heritage brand in retail segment, especially well known for its salwar kameez dupattas and sarees and embroidered kurta pajamas for gents. So for the SPFY, our capacity, the current capacity is 18,000 metric tons per annum, where we do about 1,200 plus colors. The yarn is produced in 1,200 plus colors, depending on what the customer needs. And so basically, as a company, we do like to do a lot of R&D. We like to experiment, and we like to come up with different things. And that was the reason why we went behind, having our own color batch making and making yarn available to our customers in any color they wanted, they sort of conceive. The same is followed in embroidery as well. We have a very strong library of more than 300,000 designs for our embroidered design and for our laces. And so all this gives us a lot of edge over the competition. We have a very well-established marketing network, both in SPFY and embroidery and lace segments. And our expertise in designing and manufacturing process, we've been doing it for over 3 decades. So it's a well-established system there. Now I would request Deepak, our CFO, to share some results for Q4 and the year ended March 2021 for you to comprehend, and then we can take up the questions later. Deepak, over to you.
Thanks, Harji. Good afternoon to all. Company reported a robust set of numbers for its fourth quarter of FY21 as well as financial year 21. Now let me start with sharing the performance highlights of Q4 FY21. The company recovered from the pandemic-affected loss of first quarter with the impressive quarter 4 FY21. Profit after tax before deferred tax improved 5 times to rupees 80 million over the corresponding period last year. Total income for Q4 FY21 was rupees 806 million, an increase of 57% on a year-on-year basis. EBITDA was rupees 111 million, an increase of 126% on year-on-year basis. EPS diluted for quarter 4 FY21 at rupees 4.09, a 539% increase on year-on-year basis. Now I will share the performance of your company on a full year basis. While the total income declined by 5% to 2278 million, the overall export of the company increased by 24% to touch rupees 444 million. If we look at the business-wise performance, the yarn business contributed to rupees 2028 million and embroidery and lace business contributed rupees 249 million. The EBITDA for the full year FY21 was at rupees 294 million, a substantial increase of 41% given the difficult conditions that the industry had faced. Over the previous year figures of rupees 209 million. EBITDA margin improved substantially from 8.7% to 12.9% in the same period. The profit after tax before deferred tax improved to rupees 168 million compared to 83 million in the corresponding period last year. This improvement was primarily driven by the strong performance of the SPFI business, while where PL has positioned itself as a niche player. The secured borrowing fell to lowest ever level of recent years to rupees 298 million, including rupees 116 million of working capital limits, which helped the company reduce its financial cost by 27% to 45 million. In addition, the company generated one of the highest ever yearly operational cash profit of rupees 250 million, up from rupees 170 million in the previous year. Company net profit for the year grew 137% to rupees 197 million from rupees 83 million a year ago, while PAT margin expanded to 8.6% from 3.5%. PEL is happy to propose a dividend of rupees 0.25 per share to its shareholders. This dividend comes after a gap of several years. Now I would like to invite Hardeep back to give you a flavor of the future.
Thanks, Deepak. Before I touch on some macro points where we feel that which would affect the industry as a whole, and Pioneer is part of that larger ecosystem. But the key takeaways and something that I'm extremely happy to note, as you would have also understood from Deepak's address, that our PAT has increased, our EBITDA has increased, our EPS has increased. And moreover, this was the first year of net operational cash flow for the company. Our last 3 quarters were substantially better than the previous year on year. Very importantly, our loan position has become much better. Our secured borrowings have come down substantially, and we are in a much better position to service our debts, which in any case are, we are in a very good position in terms of the total debt numbers that you would have noted already. They're uploaded on the website. So financially and operationally, company is much better placed, and we are in a position now to tap any opportunities, as and when required or as they unfold. Basically, COVID for us. Yes, it's been extremely painful and challenging in more ways than one. But COVID also made us learn a lot. For the first time, we largely operate in a segment which is considered to be a little bit, traditional and conservative. But then we learned the true way of working from home. We learned how we could, optimize our costs. And the results are there for all of you to see. And I would also like to give a lot of credit to our team, who actually converted the vision into executed it flawlessly, and to bring forth a good performance. So as far as the larger macro side is concerned, our industry is expected, textile as a whole is expected to grow to 220 billion by FY 25-26. And exports are also estimated to grow by 70 billion in the same period. So some contributor to this growth are factors such as, per capita income is rising, favorable demographics, fashion is changing. It has become, fashion is now, it's a very relative kind of term now. And, social media plays a lot of part in making fashion more disposable, so to say. And that, again, fuels increased purchase. Online purchases have increased. Government is being extremely pragmatic, and incentives are there. The present government is proactive, and when it comes to our industry, and the Director General of Foreign Trade has also devised the incentives under the MEIS scheme for 2 subsectors of textile industry, ready-made garments and made-ups, from 2 to 4%, which will definitely have a trickle-down impact in the entire ecosystem. Then there are several other measures like amended technology upgradation fund scheme, and then few other incentives like CLI, building textile parks. So basically, let's say they announced 7 textile mega parks to be set up within 3-year implementation period. So these parks will help India as a whole in exports. And again, being part of this industry and ecosystem, we do expect some trickle-down effect for the entire industry. speedy recovery in export demand coupled with higher operating leverage will lead to improved profitability for exporters in fiscal 2022 to near 2020 levels. However, recovery in profitability, on the note for the domestic ready-made garment, we see it continue to lag, compared to earlier years due to second COVID wave of these infections in India. But at the same time, we do see phased demand step by step now that vaccination is in full swing. So hopefully things will turn around sooner than later. And now I open the floor to question and answers, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on your touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Ravi from Sundaram Family Investments. Please go ahead.
Hello, madam. Thank you for the opportunity. Sir, I have two questions. We see a general uptrend in the overall yarn industry towards the second half of this financial year. How are you visualizing this panning out through this FY22 as we have started? So that is my first question.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Yeah. My question is, yarn prices have done well, especially towards the second half of the financial year, particularly in Q4. We see it the prices being very good across the industry. My question is, how are you seeing it going forward? How are you seeing the yarn prices?
We see ourselves as maintaining the same level. Basically, our yarn prices are also governed majorly by the raw material, which in turn is governed by the petrochemical prices. But we are able to pass them through to the customers. So at best or worst, it is about a 15-day gap for translation. So there we do not see any notable impact. So we should be able to hold it, our margins.
Okay. And the second question is, how are you seeing COVID lockdowns impacting your business in the coming quarters, first quarter and the second quarter?
For first quarter, it would be impacted for sure because we are going through first quarters, but I'm not being able to put a number to it because we are still in the midst of it. But it's for all to see. The markets are largely closed, and so you see, we already went through a similar period last year. This year, right now, it's going better than last year to us. But at the same time, the complete impact can only be known once the quarter is over. And I think by second quarter, we do see the situation with COVID stabilizing. As the numbers are showing every day, everyone is reading papers and whatever is being communicated. I think we are hoping that lockdown will be opening in phases from 1st June across the country. So things are going to get better from here in all probability. That's what we feel and that's what we are working toward.
That makes sense, sir. Just to follow up on that, are you seeing any demand side impact? I understand the supply side we should stabilize around once COVID settles down, hopefully by end of Q1. How is the demand side impact?
Demand side is also, see for us, right now we are operating at about 35 days of order book position. So demand side also, it's pretty decent. It's in line with, what our forecasts are. So as of now, it's a fairly comfortable place. And moreover, what has also happened is that due to COVID, globally there has been a very strong trend growth in home furnishing segment. People who are largely operating from home, work from home. So, It impacted people in terms of watching the same things, same approach fees, same carpet, same curtains. And globally, what happened that people started investing a lot more towards home finishing rather than fashion. Because fashion was still all basics, everyone was largely operating from home, and that trend is still continuing. And so we do operate a lot for the home finishing segment. Our yarn goes there in the non-apparel. So right now we see a very decent demand. So
Okay.
we are okay.
Last question before I come back in the queue. What is your current capacity utilization? Are we seeing any capacity?
Right now it's at about 80%.
Okay.
For our yarn business.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 minute. The next question is from the line of Kushal Jain, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. So my question is is performance-linked incentive scheme will impact your business?
No, not really, because we do not fall into the criteria of that scheme. So it's for a much larger ticket size.
Okay.
But to that extent, where it impacts positively the entire ecosystem and the industry, but that trickle-down effect and the general positivity that it will impart to the whole sector, yes.
Okay.
To that extent.
Okay. And one more question from my end is, what kind of industry trend are you seeing in the industry regards to cotton yarn and man-made yarn?
The way we are seeing, since we are in the man-made side of the thing, we do see a lot of interest there, especially because people are moving towards sustainability and they are looking at better alternatives to save the natural resources. So the investor interest would also typically follow.
Mr. Harshvardhan, your audio was breaking. We couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm saying we are towards. Am I audible now? Is it better?
Yes.
It's much better.
So I was saying we are towards the man-made side of the things, and from our perspective, the way we see from our window, the investors would typically follow where the general perception or the demand is following, and where we see it, a lot of people are gravitating towards more sustainable living and looking at cleaner alternatives. And to that end, we do see a fairly good interest towards this side.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would request the participants to please press star and 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Amit Doshi from Care PMS. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Sir, you mentioned about, I think one of the participants also alluded to that, this Q2, has been really for yarn companies in general, and that probably looks like we also have had an advantage of. So this, can you just share what has been the volume growth? Because I'm sure there is a part of inventory gains which we would have achieved, and also a bit of price pass on that you mentioned about. But if you can say broadly, 2019, 2020, and now 2021, what has been the volume growth broadly in these 3 years?
Yeah, we can give you. I think Deepak can take that question. Deepak, the volume growth.
Volume is around 14,000 tons we have sold last year. Similar lines on FY20. Only we have gained due to increase in prices, and margin has improved last year. Before FY20, our average realization is 140 rupees per kg, which has increased to 149 rupees per kg in last year.
Okay, 140 to 159 rupees per kg.
Yes.
Okay.
This has given us a boost.
And also, if you see that last year, first quarter was impacted by COVID. and before that was a cleaner year. But still, the numbers.
One thing to need to add: in last 2 quarters, our capacity utilization is around 94-95%, which was around 85% in FY20 second half.
Understand. Okay. So, sir, during the opening remarks, you also mentioned that the exports have the contribution of exports have risen from 24% to 60%. So, what has made this significant jump in the export contribution? Anything that you can share, significant steps that would have taken in last, say, 2-3 years or so?
See, Mr. Doshi, this is a combination of both exports and indirect exports. So, direct exports are about 20%, and then another 40% of indirect. So, indirect, I am tagging the number where we are supplying to, let's say, EOUs, or we are supplying to the certified exporters, which in turn, they converted into, let's say, carpets or upholstery or whatever the end product, and the product is exported. So, the increase, like I mentioned, there has been a global uptrend for home furnishings. So that has contributed a lot in terms of, increase, because last year the domestic market was well subdued, obviously because of corona impact. But then internationally, because the countries were closing and opening in phases, and probably they were little ahead of us in terms of the graph. So we are in a very unique position actually, Mr. Doshi. The thing is that the kind of capacity that we have in our yarn and the product we churn out, we are extremely nimble, and that gives us a unique ability to change both our product mix and also, let's say, the product mix, or in terms of geographies, and most importantly, we are a EBITDA driven company. I know it sounds very money-minded or selfish to say, but we are an EBITDA-driven company, so we see wherever there is better. Obviously, there is a policy, there is a vision attached to it, but the governing factor is EBITDA generation, bottom line. So we see we study whatever number. Like let's say today we are sitting on a 35-day order book position. Now the new orders which are going to unfold, we take a call. What is more beneficial for the company? So then it doesn't matter to us whether it is being sold to someone in Panipat or it is going to a customer in Panama. If Panipat is going to give me more a better realization than a customer in Panama, it will go to Panipat. So that's how we operate, and that learning and the way of doing business has paid. It somehow works for us.
Okay. So initially you mentioned global uptrend something, but your voice got cut, so I couldn't hear it very clearly. What is the global uptrend in what? Sorry?
Home furnishing sales.
Home furnishing. Okay.
Globally,
so that's the majority of our application goes and.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why now, and more of the indirect export growth has happened rather than the direct export growth.
Yeah. No, even direct export was growing, but then combined was about 60%. Like I said, 20% was direct export, then 40% was indirect, and the balance is domestic. So it was a combination.
Okay. Fair enough. You mentioned about the overall demand, etc., will get impacted. On the production side, do you see any impact? And I see that your plant is in Tamil Nadu or Kerala, where lockdown steps are there. So anything on the production side, there is a bit of curbs or impact, or I don't know, in the employee space you need more employee or more people are employed, and maybe because of social distancing norms you would have to cut down or curb. Anything on that you would want to add?
No, I mean, you see the learning curve is already over. During the first wave, the learning curve was over in the first quarter itself. So everything is in place. We are practicing social distancing. We are practicing robust testing. The good part is that we didn't, we hardly had any cases internally in any of our factories. So because of the strict protocol, and probably more than that, I think God is kind, because it is, you never know where it strikes from. The the systems are set. So in that sense, let's see if impact can be when you don't find labor. If there is a panic and labor goes away and all that, it is actually impacting our embroidery operations for now. But yarn, because this is in Himachal Pradesh and the state has largely been, I will not say insulated, but has been able to manage it better, or probably had lesser numbers compared to the country as a whole. So we are okay. We are okay. We are not impacted on that count.
Okay, so you want to say that 90-95% capacity at which you are operating in H2 is broadly continuing?
It should continue. See, Mr. Doshi, right now I'm at 80%. So the impact would obviously be there of...
Fair enough. Got it.
Best of your ability. If labor wants to go home, they will go home.
Okay.
But then I think it's a situation which can largely be contained.
Yeah, okay. This textile, we have this roadmap scheme, about rebate of taxes and levies, etc. So do we have any advantage of it? And if yes, what could be the percentage of it in our books as of now?
Right now, I would not be able to quantify it. Yes, like every exporter, it would impact us. It's a benefit which the government is going to give, but it's largely a conversion from earlier benefit to this one. So numbers are broadly the same or probably a little lower. So I don't see any substantial change vis-a-vis last year.
Okay. And there's one more bookkeeping question. What could be the carry forward loss that we would be having? Because of course we have not been paying taxes for quite some time now. So how much more amount we have left as a carry forward losses?
Deepak, you want to take that?
And this loss will be available in next year also. Hopefully next year no tax liability will be paid.
Okay. So next year
we are safe in FY22 against tax liability.
Okay.
We have enough carry forward losses.
Fine. I'll come back in the queue if there are any extra questions. Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Apurva Mehta, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Mehta, go on. You're audible.
First of all, congrats for the great set of numbers. I have a couple of questions, sir. Around 60% of the promoters holding is pledged. What is the reason behind that?
Okay. So, yes, 61% of promoter holding pledged, that is seen. Actually, it's not a pledge in terms of the way we understand. This is a part of our collateral security that is being given to our existing banker, Kotak. So it is not that company has taken any loan by pledging these shares or anything of that sort, or a market pledge. Nothing of that sort. It's just normal part of the loan documentation where it was pledged, and in fact we are looking at getting this holding also released based on our performance and the fact that our the debt position has become much better. We are looking at getting this released as well.
Okay. So what is the current debt level in the company and what is the interest cost on the same?
Deepak, you want to take this?
Current debt level is 294 million. And average cost of interest is 11% as of now.
Okay.
So basically 29 crore debt for the entire company.
Okay.
Out of this 29 crores, 8 crore will be payable in this FY22.
Hello. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We would request the participants to please press star and 1 to ask the question. The next question is from the line of Amit Doshi from JS. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you again for the follow-up. Sir, you mentioned that, whatever growth that is coming in because of the global uptrend in demand. In terms of prices, the margins, you may said that you will be able to maintain it, but historically we have the range of the 7-8% margin. This year clearly, has a better margin, and probably one of the key reasons is the price realization, as you mentioned. So what would change, or what changes happened that would allow you to generate a margin of say 10-12% instead of 7-8% historically?
So the cost optimization measures and the product mix, which keeps on changing dynamically. So all that would ensure that we maintain healthy margins. We are looking at it on a daily basis, and with a laser focus on the bottom line. Like I said, focus is bottom line. So we are extremely cognizant of the fact. So especially the cost optimization would really help to maintain it, because the learning which was complete, and now it's being implemented on an everyday basis.
So on the product mix, can you just share some more points, like what kind of, different products that we have and which has higher margin, lower margin, anything that you can add?
So basically, Mr. Doshi, the thing is that we do right from basic yarn to value-added yarn. So value-added yarns obviously give you a better margin. And then amongst value-added also, we are also, let's say we are doing flame retardants, we are doing antimicrobials, we are doing different kinds of air texturized yarn with different applications. Some yarns are only for carpets, some are for upholstery, and so like different segments. So when I say product, or we could do a coarser yarn and a finer yarn both. So product mix essentially would mean that when these are having a decent order book position, and when the new inquiries come, you plan your production according to what is the most optimum mix based on your machinery and the way you produce and the way you deliver. Our idea is to every order comes in, moves out in the shortest possible time with the best quality in line with our set system. So that's how we optimize and change. And then suddenly, let's say another big order comes or something comes. So like I said, we are very, very nimble. We can change pretty fast. And our machines these are all German machines from Barnett. This is the latest technology that is there in the world. And since we set up this plant in 2007, we've been upgrading every few years, expanding, upgrading. And so right now, the kind of plant we have is comparable to any other plant, any best plant across the world. And probably we would be counted amongst the best in our size. So that's where the effect comes from.
Okay. Who could be our key competitors in India? If we were just to compare in PFY space.
Not many, but let's say a company like Dodia, then Creative Textile, then I think there's another company called Sujata Synthetics, PNR, to name a few. I don't know their numbers or their capacities and all that, but these are the names which are in competition, which are doing good work.
Okay, fine. And this 8 crore debt repayment mentioned in that is going to be repaid is part of that schedule, or it's a more like voluntary reduction in the debt?
No, this is scheduled payment. This 8 crore will be paid over the year, over FY22.
Okay. But we so what is our target as a company? What level of debt you would want to achieve, or what level you would be comfortable?
Last year we have achieved EBITDA of 29 crores.
Right.
And this year we should achieve this EBITDA also again.
I think he's asking more towards the debt level. So
yes. My question is on the debt level, of comfortable debt levels for the company.
Right now we are at a comfortable level.
And we can.
3 years back it was 65 crores. In last 2 years, we have paid 22 crores of debt.
Right. Okay. So I wanted to know basically, do you want to kind of become debt free, say by 2020?
Now, as of now, we are very comfortable position. And tell me.
If we don't expand or don't take any more debt, then we will be debt free in few years. Then the growth does demand expansion, and that expansion would require some outside funding as well. So I think it's all part of the normal business. And whenever we've expanded or done any such exercise, it's been taken in isolation. So we do not calculate that what we are doing right now, whatever we are doing right now, we are paying for it right now. So we calculate what extra will be generate and how will that extra generate whatever extra liability is going to be taken. So that's largely the thought process. So I think we will always maintain a very comfortable level irrespective.
Okay. So on the growth side, I mean, that was my next question. Based on the current capacity that we have around 10-15% room to grow at current capacity levels. And what would be your just general judgment that by when that you will be able to achieve, so that that then you will have to think about the next level of capacity expansion or growth, etc.
Mr. Doshi, that's an ongoing process. I mean, as an entrepreneur, one doesn't stop, dreaming or stop his vision. So the idea is we continuously keep on planning. And right now also, we are internally debating which side to, sort of expand and how to do it and all that. But, I can only comment once the things fructify in plans and we sort of inform the exchanges and about. Right now, internally, with, let's say, brainstorming within the team, we are evaluating different options.
Okay. And this Silcolite brand, so while I understand we are primarily into B2B business, so how much this brand helps us, in terms of achieving better margins compared to something, say, non-branded product? Or is there any, because it's like more like B2B, right? So Hakoba, I understand that's more like a retail product, but this is more like a B2B. So can you explain, I mean, the Silcolite brand?
Yes. So Silcolite, see, we are probably the only company who's selling something which was always considered a commodity as a branded item. So, and that, if you, let's say you go to Europe or you go whatever segments we operate in, people do know us by this name. We managed to create a niche and a name for the brand. Now, the impact is that, let's say, a customer has a choice between Silcolite and a non-branded. I'm very sure we do get some brownie points for the brand, and we do get a little push up there. And that again is backed by a brand is only as good as your performance. So it's been a rock solid 15 years of hard work and we've been using this brand from day one. The whole idea was polyester yarn with look, feel, and luster of silk. So that's how Silcolite was coined. And that it has always helped us. It's become sort of a calling card for our yarn business. I mean, people just know us by Silcolite. Pioneer, maybe there would be some odd person who would not know Pioneer in that segment, would still know Silcolite for yarn. And it's same with Hakoba. Embroidered fabric means Hakoba. And so it does help.
Okay. You mentioned about, overall COVID second wave impact. So I believe that impact would probably restrict it to the 40% of the business, which is domestic, because broadly exports are kind of quite doing well in general, and global economy other than India is opening up quite well. So anything on that? So would that impact be more of the domestic business and export?
Logically, yes. What you're saying is correct. It would largely be towards the domestic demand and only. That's what we feel. But then again, like I said, we are extremely bullish now that cases are going down, country is going to open up. There is going to be a latent pent-up demand. It's not that people are stop going to use it, and otherwise the economy is the larger numbers. Government is quite cognizant and things are in place. So we do see, and then there's a festive season ahead. Probably aided by the fact that a lot of vaccinations would take place. I know, there is a lot of narrative about slow speed and all that, but then for a country of our size, I think we are still doing quite well, and things are going to be, speeding up soon. So yes, to your point, it would be towards domestic only, but then we do feel that it should cover up to a great extent.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much. Wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question, may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Apurva Mehta, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Okay. So who are the end users of embroidery and lace products, and what kind of growth we can expect in that segment?
End users, yeah, it's a matter. The end users are for in the industrial embroidery segment. If I were to say, the end users would be the apparel manufacturers, or even let's say home furnishing, where manufacturers where they are selling embroidered curtains and all that, or bed sets, and where they're using laces. So for the industrial part, those people would be the end users. And otherwise, for saris and the end users would be an individual. I mean, it goes to distributors. It goes to right from big chains to mom and pop stores, and chains like people who are supplying to Reliance or to any big brands globally. See, there are only so many embellishments that you can do on fabric. Plain fabric, you could either dye it or you could embroider it. You could do some sort of a hand embroidery. There are few elements of embellishments, and see right now where I see the embroidery headed. Right now we are operating out of our 3 factories. One is in Coimbatore, one is in Silvassa, which is in Dadra Haveli Union Territory, and then one is in Saregaon, which is in Gujarat. So going ahead, we are looking at consolidating our operations to bring about cost optimization in this segment as well. And at the same time, we need to modernize our plants. So the machinery and everything, we would be looking at modernizing them, and which would then have a very good impact on a great impact on the numbers. Which once the plans are sort of firmed up, then we can sort of share those numbers. But we are looking at it.
Okay. We have seen many small unorganized players are finding difficult to operate the business after few reforms. So we have to see its impact in our embroidery business, as most of the competition is from unorganized segment.
Could you repeat that question again, Mr. Mehta, please?
Sir, we have seen many small unorganized players which finding difficult to operate the business after few reforms. So we have seen its impact in our embroidery business, as most of the competition is from unorganized segment.
Yes, especially after the GST and everything. So we did see a turnaround, and after COVID, smaller, I would not say smaller players, but unorganized players would have no choice but to organize themselves in that sense. I mean, they will have to pay their taxes, they will have to take care of their employee benefits and everything. So it's a slow process, but steadily, slowly, surely they will have to get there. And so that part, till the time from journey from here to there, I mean, there are very few players in organized segment. There are very good factories. There are some very good factories in some regions. There are very good factories in Delhi, NCR, or on the side. So it's a mix, and I don't call them unorganized. While they may not be a listed company, but then they are very well managed factories, good setups. So then and then obviously there are smaller players, 2 machines, 3 machines, and smaller unorganized players. So there is a competition, but then you see with the end customer, again depends on end customer. If the end customer is going to be supplying to larger chains globally, let's say someone who's supplying to Inditex, let's say Zara, they cannot do their production in a factory which is not approved by Zara. So smaller players cannot get it approved because of the strong compliances they have. So our factory in Coimbatore is approved for Inditex. We are also approved we are got certified in our factory. So our factory in South, it can produce organic embroideries. So, and we are also working on getting our other two factories also approved. And then we work with a lot of other, let's say if there is an order with a manufacturer for Reliance, the kind of numbers they want, it cannot be done in a smaller factory. So to that extent, you are largely insulated because of the segment that you operate in.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That is all from my side.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. That was the last question. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Vastupal Shah from Kirin Advisors for closing comments.
Thank you everyone for joining the conference call of Pioneer Embroideries Limited. If you have any questions or queries, you can write us at vastupal@kirinadvisors.com. And once more, many thanks to everyone for joining the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Deepak. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you. On behalf of Kirin Advisors, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you can now disconnect your line.